always go in as high as you possibly can in your marketplace with your management fees. It stands to reason if you have a combination of low management fees and lower rents, well, then your AAMI is not going to be very high. So the two main focus areas should be a decent management fee. I always like to say aim for around that 7%, but of course that's going to determine where you are in Australia and what your average might be for the area. But just aim to always get the absolute highest management fee that you can get. And then obviously the weekly rent as well. The weekly rent does need to also be quite a higher price point. So I would say, where possible, try to focus your attention on getting those higher end properties or higher rent value properties as much as possible. If you're in a marketplace where your average weekly rent is only $400 or $450, that doesn't mean you can't have a great AAMI. It just means that you might have to have a higher management fee, as high as possible, to help push that AAMI up.
Welcome back to the Property Management Podcast. Thank you so much for having me in your ears. Today we're diving into a topic that is often misunderstood, but is absolutely critical to the health and value of your business. Your average annual management income, or AAMI, and how to increase it and the value of your rent roll. And here's the thing. So many of us are working harder, signing more managements, growing our portfolio, and still wondering why the heck isn't my business more profitable. We think more managements equals more income, but the truth is, adding more business doesn't always mean making more money, especially if the foundations aren't right. Poor processes, low fees, high churn, and underperforming team members can quietly eat away at your profitability. And let's be honest, most of us weren't taught how to read the real numbers in our business. We look at income, but not true profit. We celebrate growth without understanding the cost of bad business. And we don't realize how much we're leaving on the table until it's too late. That's why I've invited Aaron Emery from Rent Roll Mastery to join me on this episode. Aaron brings over 2 decades of experience in property management and business consulting, and he's someone who has not only built and sold a successful PM business, but he has helped countless others improve their systems, understand their numbers, and finally take control of their profitability. So in this episode, we're going to break down what the AAMI really means and why it's the most important number in your rent roll, how to grow your value, not just your management count, the hidden costs of running an inefficient business, and the practical, no BS ways to increase your income per management without burning out. So if you're feeling stuck, unsure where your profit is going, or just ready to get serious about building a rent roll that's actually worth something, this episode is for you. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on the Property Management Podcast. I'm super excited to have you here. It's been a long time in the making getting you on this podcast, so I'm so glad that we have made it happen. Before we dive in, can you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now?
Sure. Thank you, Kylie, and thanks for having me on. I'm really grateful to be joining you on today. And yes, we have been trying for a little while, but we got there in the end. For those that don't know me, my name is Aaron Emery. I'm the director and CEO of a company called Rent Roll Mastery. We work directly with business owners, doing everything from property management auditing, and that includes rent roll due diligence audits, pre-sale, etc. We also do rent roll brokerage, but I guess our point of difference is I will only sell a rent roll if it's been through a pre-sale audit with me so that it's pre-qualified and ready to go. And we also do property management training for team training around Australia as well. So I've been in the industry 20 years tomorrow. Oh, that's scary. I just looked at the date. 20 years tomorrow. And in that time, I've worked for all different kinds of agencies. And then in 2016, I went out on my own and started to build my own rent roll. I grew that to around 100 doors, just over. And then I sold that off at the end of 2022. But I've been helping business owners working as a property management business performance coach since 2018 and helping different business owners and the teams around Australia.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And do you think having started and sold your own rent roll, it actually really qualifies you really well to be helping business owners with their rent roll sales? Yeah, so you obviously have a unique insight into what goes on now because you've done that yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that it really does help me to connect with them and to get them to feel comfortable enough to open up with me as well, because I've been there, I've been in their shoes. And it's interesting because people say to me now, well, if you don't own a rent roll anymore, you're not in the trenches. So maybe you're going to lose touch or not be as in touch as what you were. But I twist that around and say to them, well, in actual fact, I don't manage properties directly anymore, but I still work with a big number of clients that have got big portfolios, small portfolios, smaller teams, big teams. And so, really, I'm still in the trenches, except I'm just not dealing with those day-to-day issues that are my problems. They're someone else's problems. And so I'm just still just helping them deal with those issues and problems and make their job easier for them. So
Yeah, and that's what it's all about is making somebody else's life a lot easier in their industry or the roles that we now play as we've stepped away from running our own businesses. That's super
that's it.
important. Yeah. And tell
Yeah.
me, let's start at the very beginning. And I'm because some of my audience are either wanting to go out and start their own rent roll or they've just started their rent roll. I really want to break down this AAMI for everybody. Let's
Mhm.
talk about what is it and why is it relevant?
Yeah, sure. And this is a great topic, and I think that it needs to be discussed a little bit more. Once upon a time, I used to think, how could you not know what AMI stands for and what it means? But I fully believe that you don't know what you don't know. So if you're not usually in a leadership role or that senior kind of property manager role, maybe you haven't had a lot of exposure to it. But at the end of the day, really understanding what drives your rent roll value is the AMI. I fully believe that the true value of a rent roll is not just about how many properties that you manage, it's about how well you manage them. But what I often see, Kylie, is that many business owners get fixated on the number of doors, whereas they should be fixated on the profit per door. And I guess so. I look at introducing AAMI as really the number one metric that matters in business. It reveals exactly what you're actually earning per property per year, not just what you charge.
And let's just go back a step and say, so it's the average annualized management income. Is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
average annual management income. Yep.
And so what does that
And
incorporate? Yeah. So what is that? It's not just your percentage, it's all the other fees as well? Or is it just your percentage, your management income fee?
so you can look at it from both management revenue and also auxiliary fee income. But when it comes to the value of a rent roll, the value of the rent roll is only based on the annual management income that the business brings in from management fees. And that's where the value lies when it comes time. For example, if you wanted to sell the rent roll, it's based on the management revenue. The auxiliary revenue is still critical and important, but you don't get paid per se on the auxiliary revenue. It's only on the annual management fee revenue. So you've got essentially annual management revenue, and then that's across the entire portfolio. And then when you break that down, you divide that number by the number of properties under management, and that gives you your AAMI then per property.
Okay. And so are there some ways, or what are some of the ways that we can improve that double AMI, which is particularly important if you're going to sell your rent roll, you want to have a higher double AMI.
Mhm.
Is that possible to get it higher? What are some of the strategies there?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one way to do it is obviously always go in as high as you possibly can in your marketplace with your management fees. It stands to reason if you have a combination of low management fees and lower rents, well, then your AAMI is not going to be very high. So the two main focus areas should be a decent management fee. I always like to say aim for around that 7%, but of course that's going to determine where you are in Australia and what your average might be for the area. But just aim to always get the absolute highest management fee that you can get. And then obviously the weekly rent as well. The weekly rent does need to also be quite a higher price point. So I would say, where possible, try to focus your attention on getting those higher end properties or higher rent value properties as much as possible. If you're in a marketplace where your average weekly rent is only $400 or $450, that doesn't mean you can't have a great AAMI. It just means that you might have to have a higher management fee as high as possible to help push that AAMI up.
Right. So when it comes to growing your rent roll, a lot of us think, you've touched on this already, that getting more managements, more doors is the only way to grow your rent roll. But as I was getting my rent roll ready for sale last year, I started working on increasing my auxiliary fees. I, of course, had a strategy in place and luckily the market supported. I was working on increasing rents. At the same time, the management fees was a little bit harder to increase those, although we did try to get higher management fees. But once we started losing it to some competitors with lower management fees, we kind of had to adjust that strategy. But what worked well was definitely strategically increasing the rents and then adding those auxiliary fees as well. They are important ways to work on not only growing the profitability of your business. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the AAMI and then you look at your auxiliary fees, the way it's always been taught to me anyway, and how I've been trained and understanding AAMI and looking at auxiliary fees and then looking at the multiple, the sales multiple that you might be able to achieve, or the asset value multiplier that we refer to. If, for example, you have a AAMI per property of, say, $2,400, that's quite great. That's really good. I often see them under $2,000, and I just think there's not a lot of margin left in that by the time you take out operating costs. But then if you had, say, an additional $30,000 to $40,000 of auxiliary fee income come into the business, you don't necessarily get paid on that auxiliary fee income, but it can be the difference between whether we may achieve an asset value multiple of $2.80, $2.90, $3, for example, or whether we are able to get you a higher asset value multiple because of the goodwill that exists in that rent roll from those auxiliary fees. So whenever I'm looking at rent roll valuation, we'll look at what the AAMI is per property, what the annual management revenue is for the entire portfolio, and then we'll work out the valuation on that with the asset value multiplier. And then we'll look at the auxiliary fee, and we can then divide that total annual auxiliary fee divided by the number of properties under management. And that might give us an extra $300 to $500 AMI per property. But you only get paid on the AAMI from the management revenue. But it could be the difference, as I say, between whether I say to the business owner, hey, look, I think we can achieve a multiple of $2.90 or $3, or because you've got such a significant amount of auxiliary income coming in, which is goodwill in the business, we may be able to bump that multiple up to $3.10 or somewhere around there because of that additional value built into the business.
Oh, that's really good to know. You explained my question very well then, because I don't think I really understood that even in my recent sale, how that auxiliary income actually assisted my overall sales. So thank you very much for explaining that in layman's terms for me.
That's okay.
So talk to me, I guess, what is the AAMI that we should be shooting for? What's a good AAMI? Say, I know it's hard in different parts of Australia, but we're in Brisbane, so let's maybe just let's focus on that. And then if you've got any other ideas of other places in Australia, let me know. Yeah, what is good AAMI?
If we just look at it as a national average across the board, on average, it costs the business around, look, it depends, but it could be anything from $1,450 up to about $1,600 a year to manage that property is what it costs by the time you consider staff wages, resources, and subscription costs and all those kind of things. So when I see like rent roll brokers out there and they're marketing these rent rolls and they've only got an average AAMI of around $1,600 or $1,700, that's quite scary to me, because I think, wow, there is really not much margin, profit margin in that per door at all by the time you take out those operating costs. So to really have the best ability to achieve the highest possible profit margin, I've always said as a minimum, I think the AAMI should be $1,900, even like $2,000 as a benchmark. And any higher than that, great. The higher, the better, obviously. But as a minimum benchmark, I always teach the clients that I work with to work on $2,000, which, if you break that down into layman's terms, we're talking about an average weekly rent of $500 and an average management fee of about 8%. That $500 a week and the 8% management fee would give you just over $2,000 AAMI per property.
That's amazing. Thank you. And what about the auxiliary fees? What are some of the auxiliary fees people should be charging that are just no-brainers? And then any new ones that we could be adding into the mix now?
Sure. I'm seeing quite a bit of a mix, actually. When I do my auditing, I always get amazed at what I am seeing with auxiliary fees. For example, I'm working on an audit right now, and this particular agency, so they charge variation, but anything from $27.50 up to $120 for routine inspections. There's always been a bit of contention in the industry around whether routine inspections should just be blanketly included in our management fee because it's part of our service. And some may argue that quite successfully, but I do believe that if we're going to be offering 3 or 4 routine inspections per year, maybe you don't charge for the first 2 and you do charge for the third, or you don't charge for the first 1 and charge for the second or third, whatever you want to do. But I think that there is definitely room there to be charging for routine inspections. This particular agency as well, they, interestingly, and I haven't seen this before, but I was like, kudos to you, that's great. They charge $220 to go and do the entry condition report and all of the photos. Now, granted, that particular office is using Inspection Express and AI 360 camera and the AI component. So, they're selling that service to the property owner, that it's giving them the best chance of capturing that property, and really it's going to be a good quality condition report. And so they're charging $220, including GST, to do that report and those photos, in addition to still charging the standard 1 week's rent plus GST let fee. I think that as we start to incorporate new technology into our businesses, and let's be honest, thank God, the technology has just gone gangbusters in the last 5 years in our industry, which is great. I think there is room that we can potentially start to add some additional auxiliary fees into the mix that help offset some of those costs, or really provide additional value to the landlord about why they should pay for it, because it's going to provide a better quality outcome to that tenancy or that particular situation. So routine inspection fees, the entry condition report and photos I've seen. I am even seeing some agencies are charging for like hoc kind of inspections at the properties. How many times have you received a phone call from the owner and, oh, Aaron or Kylie, I'm refinancing and we need to have a valuation done on the property. So we all know that it's not going to just be one bank valuer that comes through. It's usually 2 or 3. And of course, they don't come at the same time because they don't want to be seen next to each other, because they're from different valuation companies. And I'm seeing some companies charge for those. So they'll say to the landlord, look, we're happy to meet that valuer on site and provide access. And I'm seeing them charge anything from $39 up to $69 to go and do those inspections and show those valuers through, because again, it's not really part of our job as a property manager. Sure, we do have keys and we can facilitate that service for the owner, but it shouldn't be included in our standard management fees. So ad hoc inspections for those. I'm also seeing exit inspections as well. So they are charging for the exit of the property and again doing that report. And I'm also seeing like file closing fees. So if the owner does terminate the management, then some agencies are now charging for like handing over that file, as there could be 1 to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours worth of work, preparing the file, making sure you've got all the copies of the documentation. So I do think that it's applicable, and I think we should be charging for that. And in terms of what I'm seeing, that file closing fee, I see anything from $100 plus GST right up to half a week's rent plus GST. And I think that, maybe you could put some boundaries or conditions around that. Like, one of the things I do see quite commonly is if they are losing the management because the owner is moving into the property, or they're losing the management because the owner is selling the property, then they might put a condition to say, if you're moving into it, you won't pay it. If you're selling it and you list it with our agency for sale, then you won't pay it. But if you're just leaving us because someone down the road dangled the carrot and offered you 6% and we're charging you 7.5%, and we've not done anything wrong to actually provide bad service, then we're going to charge it, and it becomes due and payable, so that we're kind of facilitating and recovering some of our time spent on preparing that file.
And I think
there's probably a couple.
That's great. And I think that's important that we do charge for our time, because every other industry, every other profession charges for their time. We don't get anything from a solicitor or an accountant without them charging us for our time. So why shouldn't property management be any different?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one of the fees I added before I sold my rent roll was a technology fee, or technology and software fee. I started charging $25 a month for the technology and software, and obviously just having to have those conversations around the 360-degree cameras and how much that would save having to go to QCAD or there's no arguing with the tenant with those inspection express reports. They're freaking amazing, and if you don't have them, you definitely should have one. They're a no-brainer, I believe, now, doing those 360 reports.
Yeah, 100%.
But we're paying for that as an agency.
Yes.
And it provides greater transparency to our clients as well. And that's the conversation I have with our clients, that I don't want to hide anything from you, which for far too long there's a lot of mistrust out there with the landlords, property managers hiding stuff, and then the tenants move out, and then all these issues that were covered up. My point of difference has always been that I am transparent. I share absolutely every report with you. I have nothing to hide. You can trust me, which is really important. Are you feeling overwhelmed and thinking about selling your rent roll? Don't worry, you're not alone, and HDNU is here to help. Whether you're ready to sell now or you just want to plan for the future, the friendly and approachable team at HDNU makes the process simple and stress-free. Hello, yes please. With over 30 years of expertise, they're not just about crunching the numbers. They genuinely care about helping you maximize your agency's value and get the best outcome for you. Their sales readiness bundle is like having a trusted advisor by your side. They'll work closely with you to assess your agency's key factors, create an easy to understand heat map of your strengths and opportunities, and then sit down with you for a 90-minute workshop to guide you on what to do next. They'll look at everything from rent roll earnings and rent arrears to compliance and team performance, and explain it all in plain English. If you're planning to sell soon, HDNU can even handle the whole process for you, from finding qualified buyers to negotiating the deal. Their friendly, professional team takes the stress out of selling, so you can feel confident every step of the way. And to get started, simply book in a meeting with the team today. Their link is in the show notes. They're here to help you move forward with confidence. Let's be real. Compliance is one of the biggest challenges in property management, and it can be overwhelming to navigate. It's time-consuming, stressful, and let's face it, one missed compliance check could lead to serious legal and financial risks, and no one wants that. That's where Sensor Insure comes in. Powered by smart sensor technology, it offers highly competitive building and landlord insurance, bundled with an ecosystem of smart safety devices. These include tamper-proof smoke alarms and water leak detectors, with automated remote testing and a 24/7 accessible audit trail. Yes, you heard me right. Sensor Insure is a game changer. It's always on and integrates seamlessly with your trust platform to streamline processes and provides live reporting across your entire rental portfolio. This ensures you're always meeting compliance requirements, giving you total peace of mind. No more waking up in the middle of the night stressed or worried that you've missed something or your team has missed something. So whether you're looking to improve your processes and efficiency, reduce stress, or protect your agency from risk, Sensor Insure has you covered. You really should see how it works. I totally encourage you to book in a free demo today by heading to sensorglobal.com or the show notes to learn more about their solutions and how they can transform your compliance game.
I think technology and communication fee is what I used to call mine. And look, I used to charge anything from $8 plus GST up to $15 plus GST per month. And I would just explain to the landlord that it covers email. Like, people think that email is free, but I've never been able to get free email. I mean, sure, you can have a Gmail account, but when you start to expand that and you want to get G Suite and have it as a full business email system, you're usually paying some kind of monthly subscription. I know I pay one for my Outlook business system. So that's a bit of a contentious one, but I think people forget that you pay for email. So that's included in that technology fee. We're paying for Property Me, and yes, okay, we don't necessarily pay extra for the owner to have access to their owner portal. However, we still pay a subscription to Property Me to be able to facilitate that process and give those owners access to the owner portal. Bank fees are not getting any cheaper. I have seen some businesses, if they're managing 1,000 doors, they could have bank fees of in excess of $300 to $400, $500 a month for handling all of that rent in their trust accounts. So when you break that down and you divide that by the number of properties or landlords, then by charging each landlord $10 a month, it does just help to absorb those costs a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's where somebody like yourself is really plays a major role in real estate businesses and rent rolls. And I've been talking a lot lately with different people who've come on the podcast about having you're not just a property manager, you're an investor, advisor, and investor wealth creator. You're part of their wealth creation team. And for us to be able to do that well, to wear that hat, we need people in our corner to help us understand that wealth creation journey. And for us, as for business owners, having somebody like yourself in there, making sure that we're maximizing the fees, we're maximizing getting the highest possible double AMI, that we're not losing money through people setting up properties wrong. We need due diligence done, valuations done. So talk to me then, or talk to us a little bit about some of the things that we should be doing and utilizing sort of a service like yours, not just when we go to sell, but throughout our business. What are some of the ways that you can assist us in making sure that we are making as much profit as we possibly can?
Sure, yeah. One of the biggest services or the most popular services that we offer is the auditing. So we break that down into three kind of components. We do an operational audit, which would be if you're just plodding along and you've been operating for, could be 6 months, or it might be 6 years or 16 years, and you want to know what's going on in the business. And usually that comes about because the business owner is not always hands-on. They kind of look at the number of properties under management and they look at that revenue coming in, and something just doesn't sit well with them or quite right. It doesn't look like they're earning enough money or what they should be earning. Unfortunately, the sad reality is that I would say probably 75 to 80% of all property management businesses do have some kind of fee or income leakage going on in the business somewhere, and they just may not be able to pick it up because they don't know where to find it or where to look. But one of the three errors that I find, and this is where that revenue leakage does come from, is the fees in management agreements not being inputted correctly into the trust account software. So the trust account software may say that the management fee is 7% or 8%, but on your Form 6, on your management agreement, it might be 9% plus GST. And so it hasn't been entered in correctly. That's probably one of the most common. also, though, your auxiliary fees. So quite commonly, I see lots of auxiliary fees listed on the management agreement, but then they're not put into the trust account software. Depending on what trust account software program that you're using, I would always recommend that you create a chart of accounts for that fee. If it doesn't exist, create it. If you need to speak to your accountant or engage someone like me to help you create it and understand how to do it, they're not in there. And so if you're then also not recording them in your trust account software, and I'm going to speak about Property Me because a lot of my clients use that. So I always suggest that they go in and create a fee alert. So you would go in and create an alert to the owner contact, just mark it to the property or link it to the property and put all those additional auxiliary fees in that alert. And it might be $99 per inspection, QCAT attendance, $66 an hour, whatever it is. But if you have them all listed there, when you then go into the property screen of that property and Property Me, you'll see that alert at the top of the screen. And so if it's regularly available and easily accessible for the property manager to see those fees nice and easy, then realistically, as long as you've got the right checklist in place as well, then it should never get missed. So I do see a lot of auxiliary fees on the Form 6 that they're not in the system. And then when I go and do a fee income report and I look back over the last 12 months and I say to them, well, you're supposed to charge for lease renewal fees or for advertising and marketing or whatever it might be. But when I look at the spikes in your income graph, your income in those areas is quite low. And then we look back and we go, oh, look, 6 months ago, you renewed 20 leases and you didn't charge that lease renewal fee. And so that for that period, that's why the spike is quite low with regards to your additional auxiliary fees. So it's one thing to have them on the Form 6, but record them in the trust account software and then go even further. And if you've got the ability to create a chart of account for that fee so that it charges automatically, great. That's the best way to ensure that they will never get missed and never get not charged. And then, of course, the incorrect property type is one thing that I find. Or the other thing I see quite a lot, and I mentioned this at my event where you were, Kylie, a few weeks back, where I see people, we've all done it or we've all heard of the lead magnet, lead generation magnet to offer 3 months free management. And I can't tell you the number of times I've gone in and done an audit and they offer the 3 months, but then they just, on a handful of properties, they might never go in and start charging. And the worst one I found was 10 property owners had not been charged for 2 years. And that's a lot of revenue to lose. That's management revenue, but then let's assume as well, if they didn't have the auxiliary fees listed, they probably didn't charge those either at the time of lease renewal or QCAT application or attendance or whatever it might have been. And the number one thing they always say to me is, can I get that revenue back? Well, you could try, but you're going to look like you'll have a bit of mud on your face and be a little bit embarrassed to go back to the owner and say, hey, we haven't charged you for the last 2 years, and here's an invoice for $6,000 worth of management fees over 2 years or something.
Yeah.
And so the reality is you probably can't claim that lost revenue back, and that can be huge. I mean, you could be talking, let's say if the average property brings in $2,500 in management revenue, times that by 10, we're talking over $20,000 in lost revenue very easily, and it all adds up. And because they're not regularly auditing, they're not picking them up quick enough. And so I say this quite often, that I fully believe that our issues that we have in the industry around poor service or poor communication and not picking up on issues is because we're not regularly auditing. There's a number of agencies out there and property managers out there that'll raise their hand and say, oh, we do monthly audits. And I say to them, great, but I challenge you, how consistently are you doing them? And how deep are you actually going? And what are you checking? Because if you're not cross-referencing every Form 6 that's come in that month as a new management to make sure that it's signed, dotted and crossed where it needs to be, and that the fees on that Form 6 have been entered correctly into your trust account software, then you can't say that you have done a proper audit and that you're 100% confident that those fees are correct. And so it's about more regularly auditing to really unlock those issues and find those problems. And you can imagine if you don't regularly audit, then obviously they just compound. And the longer it goes on and drags on, the issues just get bigger and the lost revenue just continues to grow.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
Yeah.
should be something businesses should be implementing. Having somebody like yourself or somebody in their team that is very competent, attention to detail oriented, checking, doing a full deep audit consistently. I have fallen into that trap. I have had lost management fees after management fee periods not being added in. I have had let fees not being collected. You name it. I've been there with, and it's only that I have had, I would say at least annually since I've been
Mm-hmm.
in business, somebody doing some sort of an audit for me. So whether that's
Mm-hmm.
external or somebody internal, and it's been invaluable in terms of that profitability as well. So tell
Yeah,
me about, yeah, sorry, you go.
sorry, I was just going to say, I think the team should be doing regular monthly internal audits. And then I think the business should have someone external carrying out a full operational audit at least once a year, or maybe every 18 months at the most. For any of my clients that have had it done, the beauty of that is that I deliver that report to them. And then I always say to them, as long as you update this Google Sheet and you're regularly updating that and adding new managements to it and updating the rents as they increase or decrease and those kind of things, you'll always have this live data tracker that is live, accurate, has the right fees in there, is generating the right details so that you'll always understand what's going on. And if it is being regularly updated, then obviously it's not such a big job for them to do every year and it won't take as long. And they can just continue to add and add and add to that Google Sheet and it will always give them the most accurate information. And also, they can then use that to look at what is in the trust account software and more easily identify if there's a problem in the trust account software. Because at the end of the day, the information that's in that trust account software is only as good as how you input it. And if it is wrong and there are fee errors, then it's going to be wrong and it's going to be producing the wrong type of income reports and valuations for you.
Yeah, no, that's very valid. Tell me about this double AMI calculator that you have got on your website. You've got a couple of cool things on your website. And if you haven't been and visited Aaron's website, it's rentrollmastery.com. Is that
Thank
correct?
you. Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Yep.
Yep. I
And
didn't
it,
put the .au.
yes, I noticed that. And in my pastime, I do like looking at people's website. I'm a bit of a stalker. I like websites, which is weird. Lots of people scroll through TikTok. I scroll through websites. But yeah, tell me about, you've got
Love
some
it.
cool stuff on your website, and I love the calculators that you've got on there. Talk to us a little bit about them. And if somebody is curious about what their double AMI is, you've got a solution for them.
Absolutely. I'll just go back one step because we talked about at the beginning, like that they focus so much on the number of properties under management rather than the income per property. And I think the key to change that mindset and to look at it is when you increase your AMI, you actually don't need to grow your headcount of staff and you don't need to actually increase the portfolio size. So you can potentially increase the management revenue from the business just by consistently monitoring and trying to push that double AMI higher and higher. And who doesn't want to earn more money? But
For
I
doing
have
less.
exactly. And so I say to people, what if I could teach you a way that you can maximize the revenue in management revenue from your portfolio without even adding one extra single door? And they don't believe me. They say it's not possible. And I say, well, it is. You just need to always be looking at that double AMI and seeing how little changes can have such a dramatic effect when it's compounded over the entire portfolio. So on my website, when I was developing Rent Roll Mastery, because I only just rebranded to that earlier this year, and for many reasons, but I'll go into that at a different time. But I wanted to have two calculators. One is a rent roll valuation calculator, so they can input the number of properties under management, their average management fee, and the average weekly rent. And based on the formulas that are in the calculator, it will tell them what their rent roll might be valued at right now. They can also put in the asset value multiple. So they've got the ability to increase that or decrease that. I think it is by default, it's set to $2.80. But they can put it down to $2.50 if that's what the asset value multiple is in their marketplace, or they could put it up to $3.50 or $4 if that's what's going in their marketplace. And it will give them a valuation based on that. With the AAMI one, it's called the AAMI Improvement Potential Calculator. And it's a really powerful tool in that they can again put in the number of properties, the current average weekly rent per property, and the target rent increase percentage. So if again they've got the ability to kind of go 5% is the lowest, or 10% or 15%, and then put in their management fee percentage. And the management fee percentage, again, by default is set to 7, but they can decrease it to 5 or 6 or increase it to 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever is relevant. The great thing is that once they input the number of properties and the current average weekly rent per property, if they then set the rent increase to 5% and they put in the management fee at 7, it will actually give them a result that will say, great, based on what your current numbers are, this is what your AMI is across the portfolio. And then obviously divide that by the number of managements to get the AAMI per property. And then it'll also say, this is what you could potentially be earning with your AAMI simply by increasing the rents on every property by 5%. And then to play around with it a little bit more, you can obviously go, okay, well, great. If that's what the result is for 5%, let's push the envelope a little bit and put in 10% and see how much extra that would be. And so they're able to play around with it. I didn't want to stop anybody from being able to see some results on the screen. So look, full disclosure, you can see the results, you can play around with it. But if you do want to download the results and have that information to then take to the next team meeting and look at maybe how you might implement that, you just need to enter in your name and email address and it will download it in a PDF format and have all of those results nice and clear there. And I wanted to do that because I really do want to empower business owners and their teams to use it to their advantage and go, okay, if this is what we're currently earning based on the current numbers, how much extra can we earn from this portfolio without needing to always be adding new managements? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against that. Everyone wants to grow and we have to grow. But what about if we've all had slow months where you don't always get more than maybe 2 or 3 new managements? So if that's all you can achieve for the month, or maybe 5, then there's always another way that you can still increase that management revenue from the portfolio without necessarily adding on doors. Because of course, the more doors you add, then that obviously means you also have to grow that head count. And with that comes extra costs and salary costs and all the rest of it. So
Yeah. That's amazing.
yeah.
You've really thought that through, and I think that's really valuable for somebody that is interested in understanding that a little bit more. Well done. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the traditions on this podcast is our guests sharing some personal development. Do you have a tool, resource, book, podcast that you think will help our listeners?
Oh, a tool or a resource. You know what? I'm always constantly looking at what people are doing. And I guess from that, I do take the best of those bits that I see. Obviously, being a property management consultant, I do travel the world and go to conferences all around Australia, but also in the US and over in New Zealand. And I do that because especially in the US and even in New Zealand, they've got different tech stacks and they've got different technology over there and different ways of doing things. And so I am very open to looking at the way they're doing something and how I can then bring that back to Australia and roll that out or implement that with my clients so that that gives them a bit of a point of difference, because I can guarantee for the large part, most people in Australia wouldn't be doing those kind of things that I'm seeing or finding. So I guess just putting yourself out there. I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, yours and many others. I have them on repeat, and just every time I get in the car, a new one is playing. Technology wise, 100% agree with you. And this is not just a plug for Inspection Express, but honestly, those guys and what they're doing with the AI component of making those entry condition reports so much faster and just saving so much time for property managers is incredible. And I think if you're not using that, get on it. And a book that I am reading is the one that Andy Reid just released.
Oh, yes, Success Curious.
I can't.
Success Curious.
Thank you, Success
Yes.
Curious.
Yeah. I just got one at the
so
Rise
I am
conference.
reading that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reading that and I'm loving it. And it's opening my eyes to the way I look at success and what that means for me and how that might impact different decisions that I make in my day-to-day life and business. And no, it's good. It's a good book.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. How can our audience connect with you further?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Aaron Emery. You can also reach out to me through Instagram or Facebook on Rent Roll Mastery. I've got a business page there. Otherwise, send me an email. It's just Aaron, ARON, at rentrollmastery.com. Or you can also, of course, jump on my website, play around with those calculators or anything else that's on there that might take your interest. And of course, you can book a complimentary discovery session. So
amazing. Thank you so much, Aaron. I will share all of those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kylie.
If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech Scale Up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is KOLMEO. Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.